What's going on, everyone? So with the release of Alien Romulus, there are now a total of 14 movies, both from the Alien franchise, the Predator franchise, and the combined Alien vs. Predator movies, which, yeah, I know they're technically not canon, but I don't really care. I'm going to rank them all together anyway. And yes, I know it took me a while. I know that Romulus came out like a month ago, but I had to go on vacation immediately after I saw it. Then I had to get a whole new computer and desk and setup and everything. So that's why it took me so long to get this done. But I really wanted to do it because I do love a lot of these movies. Some of them I don't like much, but the Alien and Predator movies are very much up my alley because I am a horror fan, an action fan, a sci-fi fan, and these movies, most of them, combine all of those genres very well. So, with all of that out of the way, of course, I'm going to spoil all of these movies, so be warned if you have not seen any of them. Starting off with number 14 is going to be Alien 3. Now, there were all kinds of production problems with this movie. I'm a massive David Fincher fan, but this is by far and away my least favorite movie of his, and you can't even really blame him. There were so many issues, differences between him and the writer and the producers, and they kicked him out of the editing process, so he didn't even really have a say in the final cut of the movie, so you can barely even call this a Fincher movie. You do see some of the Fincherisms in there that he ultimately perfected with some of his future movies, but this one I just find, for the most part, very dull and bleak to a point where it's not even interesting. It just doesn't really do much for me. I really, really don't like what they did in the opening 15 minutes. That is the reason that it is last on this list, not any of these other reasons about the production or the tone or anything like that, which again I didn't like. But what really pisses me off is the fact that they killed off Hicks and Newt in the opening 15 minutes of the movie. Completely undoes the victory in Aliens, which is a movie that I love. You'll hear me talk about that in a little bit. But I hate that. They kill them off in the dumbest possible way for absolutely no reason. So unceremonious. I guess the only reason is to motivate Ripley's character, which I think it's annoying when movies and shows do that. So this movie angers me so much that it is last on this list, on a list with several movies that I really do not like. Coming in at number 13 is going to be Alien Resurrection. Now, this one is almost certainly a worse movie than Alien 3 is, but Alien 3 pisses me off more because of the opening 15 minutes. But this one is an absolute mess. There are a couple redeeming qualities, a couple good xenomorph moments, like when they melt through the prison or when they're swimming underwater, but that is about it, because this movie's tone is all over the place, and that was because the writer and director had totally different visions of what the movie was supposed to be. Joss Whedon wrote it as like kind of a tongue-in-cheek movie, which why would you write that for an Alien movie anyway? But the director, who is a French director, barely spoke English, played everything super straight and serious, so none of it landed. The dialogue is terrible. The characters are terrible. This so-called Ripley doesn't resemble Ripley in any way whatsoever, besides the fact that she looks like her. I found her very annoying and not anything like what I loved about the original Ripley. And nothing could have prepared me for how awful the final 15 minutes of this movie was. That alien-human hybrid is one of the worst things I have ever seen. I think, in theory, it could have been okay, but it looks so weird, and I was, like, laughing when it was dying and stuff. I could not take that even remotely seriously. I heard a lot of people were legitimately sad for that thing. I just couldn't do it. It just looked way, way too goofy to me, so tone that was all over the place, bad dialogue, bad characters, and just an awful, awful final act. Coming in at number 12 is going to be Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. This movie's biggest problem is that it is unwatchable. Literally, you can't see a goddamn thing because this movie does not understand lighting to save its life. So that the only things you were looking forward to with the Alien versus Predator fights, you can't even tell what's going on because it's so dark and so poorly edited. On top of that, the characters suck. I don't get invested in a single one of these people, and they go a little bit too far with some of the stuff they do, especially like with the xenomorph in the alien predator hybrid in the hospital with all the babies. It's like, I think that crossed a line a little bit. I just don't find that compelling whatsoever. I think that was a bit too much. So there could be some entertainment value here if you could see what the hell was going on, but you can't, so it's this low on the list. And honestly, the only reason it's higher than Alien 3 and Resurrection is because I'd probably rather rewatch this than those. Coming in at number 11 is going to be Prometheus. Now, I know this one is very divisive. A lot of people love it. A lot of people hate it. I am firmly on the hate side. This movie is not for me. I did not like the direction that Ridley Scott decided to go with this franchise, with this so-called Alien prequel, which barely has anything to do with Alien. I wish he kind of just would have done a different thing. Like, I understand the ideas that he's exploring here about creators and creations and the creator's relation to its creation. All that's somewhat interesting stuff, but I don't think it really belongs in an Alien prequel. That's just my opinion. A lot of people think it fits really well. I totally understand that, but I wish he just would have gone on and done this idea as a totally separate thing instead of teasing an Alien prequel, because I don't find it even remotely interesting for a Alien movie. I find it just very boring and pretentious, not up my alley whatsoever. Not my cup of tea. I will say it's very beautifully made. That's for sure. It looks great, and Michael Fassbender is always fantastic in every single movie that he's in. He's the best part of this and Covenant by far, but this is not a movie that interests me whatsoever and that I will ever care to rewatch. Coming in at number 10 is going to be the follow-up to Prometheus, Alien Covenant, and you can basically just repeat what I said about Prometheus with this one, except the only reason it's a little bit higher is because you do have a little bit of alien stuff in there, and I think that was really well done and intense, but it was very much an afterthought. It was put on the back burner, and they focused still pretty heavily on the creator and creation stuff, which, again, I just do not find interesting. Fassbender steals the show again, as he does in damn near every movie that he's in, and again, it's beautifully made, but I just do not care about this direction that Ridley Scott decided to go in, and because he kind of tried to split the difference a little bit, it seems like he almost ended up pleasing nobody. Neither Alien fans like myself or people who wanted to see a fully fleshed out follow-up to Prometheus, those people didn't feel like they got enough of that. So he ended up pleasing neither side of the fandom based on how they felt about Prometheus. So this was another incredibly disappointing entry in the franchise for me that is only ahead of Prometheus because it does have just a little bit of Alien stuff in there that I do want to see in an Alien movie. Coming in at number 9 is going to be The Predator, the Shane Black one. Now, I don't think this movie is good. I think it's an absolute mess. However, I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. I actually enjoyed the first half-ish of the movie. I thought that was very entertaining Predator stuff. I actually really liked the group of characters, the military guys. I thought they had really good rapport, and I truly believed that they were all friends. And, you know, when the first Predator's in there, there's some fun stuff, for sure. However, once we get into the second half, once the upgrade CGI Predator, which looks horrible, by the way, never do CGI Predators, it totally falls off a cliff. I mean, first of all, there are way too many plot lines with the Predator trying to save us with the Iron Man suit and the stuff about, you know, the kid with the disability and the stuff with Sterling K. Brown's character who gets killed off way too quickly, an incredibly jarring scene, by the way. The timeline is all over the place. The main characters have insane plot armor. It's so jumbled and disjointed in that second half of the movie. Why was the original Predator killing so many people when it was trying to help us? Just makes no damn sense. So it totally fell off a cliff after what I thought was a fairly enjoyable first half, but overall an incredibly disappointing entry in the franchise, considering Shane Black did it, who I really like as a writer and director. I like all of his other... Well, actually, I'm not a big fan of Iron Man 3, but that's a kind of a different conversation. But aside from that, I do like all of his other stuff. And he was in the original movie, so felt like a great pick for this one, and just did not deliver whatsoever, especially in that second half. There was so many production issues there that were so obvious to see. It was such a mess. Coming in at number 8 is going to be Alien vs. Predator, the first one. Now, this goes back and forth for me between being a negative score and a positive score, like a movie that I would recommend versus a movie that I wouldn't. It's right on that edge. And I think as of right now, it is a slight recommend. I do think there is enough entertainment value in here, just seeing the aliens and predators fighting each other. Now, I do wish it was rated R. You could have gotten a lot more gore, especially with the humans. You do still get a decent amount of alien and predator gore, which is nice, but I can't believe they took these two hard R horror sci-fi franchises and made it PG-13. That was honestly the biggest mistake this movie made. But there's some decent lore building in there. I like the setting in the pyramids. I actually like this explanation for how the aliens came to be as opposed to the one in Prometheus. That's probably a hot take, but I do like this one better. The characters kind of sucked. Just very, very generic, forgettable human characters with very bad, generic dialogue. So this is very much a mixed bag, and it totally should have been rated R, but I do think there is enough entertainment value there for me to recommend watching it, and this is one that I certainly don't mind rewatching. Coming in at number 7 is going to be Predator 2. I remember liking this one a lot more as a kid than I do now. I rewatched it a couple years ago in preparation for Prey, and I'm like, I still kind of enjoy this, but it is very, very dated. I do like that it takes place in the city. It's a nice change up from the first one. There's some nasty kills and gore in here. I like that we learn more about, the Predator technology and stuff. We get more lore in this movie. I like Danny Glover as the lead. Gary Busey is always enjoyable. However, I think that some of the dialogue and acting and line delivery is really, really bad. The movie is very, very cheesy. The pacing isn't great. There's kind of too many different subplots going on, and they really overcomplicate things with some of those subplots. I do prefer my Predator movies to be a little simpler, which you will see with where I have the original and where I have Prey. So this one is another mixed bag, but just like Alien vs. Predator, I definitely think there's enough in here to recommend it. I do enjoy watching it. Number 6 is going to be Predators. Now, there's actually a pretty significant jump from Predator 2 to this in my ranking, even though they're only one spot apart. But I rewatched this one again around the same time as I rewatched Predator 2 before Prey was coming out, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I remembered. So while Predator 2 went down a little bit, this one went up a little bit. It's kind of reminiscent of the first one in a lot of ways, and that's why it works, I think. That's why it's so entertaining. This is more of what I want out of a Predator movie. It's definitely derivative, but that doesn't really bother me that much. The cast isn't quite as good as the first one, although it's not bad either. There's some really good actors in here. I'm very mixed on Adrian Brody's character. I know a lot of people think he was totally miscast. I think it would have been fine if he didn't use the Batman voice.
Say goodbye to your little friend.
And try so hard to be badass. I think it would have worked a lot better. So that's the main part of it that didn't work for me. He's a really good actor, though, and I think that Topher Grace is really good in this movie, and his character, where they end up going with him and the twist is kind of random, but also completely works. That was a pretty disturbing scene. I love how it expands the lore once again. We get kind of different factions of Predators fighting each other in here, and I thought that was pretty cool. Not a big fan of the Lawrence Fishburne stuff. I thought that was a weird sidetrack that kind of tanked the pacing of the movie, but there's some good kills, good gore, delivers a lot of what I want out of a Predator movie, so for that reason, it is at number 6. Number 5 is going to be Alien Romulus. Now, this was really close with Predators. I went back and forth between which one was ultimately going to make it into my top 5. I decided on this, and a vast majority of this movie delivered exactly what I wanted out of an Alien movie and went back to basics. captured the atmosphere and tension that made the first two movies so effective. You know, it has the horror of the first one and it has the action of the second one. I think that it combined those things very well. The cast is pretty solid. I think that Kaylee Spaney, is that how you say her name, is a really good final girl. I think Isabella Merced is really good in here as well. So there's some great kills, some nasty kills, some great gore. It's got all the things you would expect out of a Fede Alvarez Alien movie. So a vast majority of this I really, really enjoyed. There's a few things that bother me. The main one is they do another alien-human hybrid in the final act, and that doesn't bother me as much as the one in Resurrection does because it looks a lot better. Still not quite there for me. I still think it was a little too weird, but you know, they took a big swing there, and a lot of people liked it. And you know, the alien coming out of Isabella Merced, like, that's pretty nasty, and I commend them for going there, but it didn't entirely work for me. And then the other thing was the CGI Ash. They should have just used someone else because it looked really weird and uncanny. I don't understand why that was necessary whatsoever. And then a small thing was, I don't like these stupid repeated lines in prequels, especially "Get away from her, you bitch." You don't need to say that in this one. That's a Ripley line. That kind of stuff is just like unnecessary. So a couple things held it back just a little bit, but a vast majority of this was incredibly effective for me and is exactly what I wanted out of a new Alien movie. Coming in at number 4 is going to be the original Alien. Now, I know it's kind of sacrilege to have it this low, but that's just a testament, number one, to how much I love those top 3 movies. And they're just a little bit more on my wavelength than this one is. I've never quite loved the original Alien as much as most people do. It is a movie that I very much appreciate and respect for what it's able to do. Ridley Scott just does a fantastic job of capturing tension and atmosphere. This movie is a masterclass at that and is almost entirely carried on that because of the directing and the fantastic Jerry Goldsmith score. I think it does a good job kind of just giving us enough of these characters and their dynamic and introducing us to one of the best final girls of all time in Ripley. It's horrifying and it builds tension so well. I just do prefer the pacing and the more action-centered movies that the 3 above this are. In particular, if you want to just compare Alien movies, I've always been more of an Aliens guy. It's a little bit more on my wavelength than the original is. So I'm never going to quite have this as high as a lot of people do, but I respect and appreciate the hell out of it. And I like it more and more as the years go by. I respect it more and more. As a kid, I thought it was kind of boring, but now I don't think it's boring at all. I do think it builds tension so well, but Aliens just takes what this one does and does a lot more things that I like and that I specifically look for in a movie. So Alien, the original, is at number 4. Number 3 is going to be Prey. I can't believe how much I loved this movie. This was very much a return to form, kind of similar to Alien Romulus, but without the drawbacks. So I like this one even more. It took things back to basics. What made the original Predator so good, so effective, is this group of people taking on the Predator. That's literally it. With great atmosphere, great action, great tension, great kills, and a solid character arc for the lead. All of that is in the original, and all of that is in Prey, but it doesn't feel like a rehash. It does just enough to feel like the original in the way that you want it to, but doesn't feel too much like it because it takes place long before, it takes place in the Native American time, and I love this lead character. This is, obviously, aside from Ripley, my favorite lead character in this entire list. So my favorite lead character in a Predator movie, in Naru. She is fantastic, one of my favorite final girls of that year and maybe ever. She, just like Arnold, is constantly picking things up throughout the movie, learning things about how the Predator operates, about her environment, and I'd say even more so than Arnold did. Now, Arnold, remember, in the first one, didn't beat the Predator because of his muscles, because he's so big and strong. He beat the Predator because he outsmarted it. Naru did the same thing, and she's not a Mary Sue. Don't give me that. She absolutely earned this win over the Predator, and it was an arc that, again, we see her learning things throughout the entire movie. So it totally worked for me. The directing is great. The cinematography is great. The score is great. The snow scene in particular looks fantastic. So it carries that tension throughout the entire movie from start to finish. I have such a good time with this one, and the Predator is badass. A little inexperienced, but gets so many cool kills, and the stuff with the bear is really good, even though the bear is obviously CGI. I'm honestly okay with that. I like that they're not using real animals for these types of movies anymore, movies in general anymore. The only thing that holds it back just a tiny bit is I do prefer the mystery of the first one, to where we don't exactly know what the Predator is and how it operates. That is a little bit scarier to me. This one's kind of out in the open the entire time. But it also works for this because it allows it to get so many cool kills. So Prey is a movie that absolutely delivered for me, and I could watch this one over and over. I got the 4K Steelbook, which is so cool. I love Prey. At number 2, I have the original Predator. I love the hell out of this movie. This one combines action and horror and sci-fi perfectly. It's got a really fun cast of characters that you don't need to dive super deep into, but you know just enough about them. You get their rapport and everything, and you feel something when they die. Arnold's character, Dutch, again, kind of similar to Naru in Prey, has a good arc in this one, constantly learning things about the Predator, about the environment, and eventually outsmarting it, not using his muscles when he did try to fist fight the Predator. He got his ass kicked. So I love that about this movie. It takes these guys who are super badass. They absolutely destroy that guerrilla camp early on in the movie, and they make them completely powerless against this extraterrestrial from another planet. I love the mystery aspect of it, which again was the only thing missing from Prey, but we kind of already knew at that point since we had seen the original, so they couldn't really do that. But when you watch this for the first time, having not seen a Predator movie before, it's pretty scary because you don't know what's going on. And the first time you kind of see him walking while he's cloaked, that was horrifying. Then you find out slightly more and more about the Predator as the movie goes along, about its technology, about what it looks like. So all of that is so cool. The atmosphere is great. The Alan Silvestri score is great. The gore is great. The kills are great. So this one is just incredibly entertaining and intense from start to finish. Basically, the perfect action sci-fi horror movie for what it is, just aside from the fact that you don't have super complex characters or anything, but you don't really need that for a movie like this. Predator is one that I could watch over and over. I have a massive soft spot for this one. One of my favorite horror movies, sci-fi movies, alien movies, Arnold movies, action movies, all of the above. I love this one so much. I just love my movie at number 1 a little bit more. And that number 1 is obviously Aliens. Aliens is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like Predator, it combines action, sci-fi, and horror perfectly. However, what sets it above Predator for me is the fact that it goes quite a bit deeper into the characters, especially Ripley. And that's also what makes me prefer it to the original, because Ripley's great in the original, but you don't learn much about her as a person. You don't get much character development in that movie. You get a ton more in this one, and her relationship with Newt is the emotional core of the movie. I love that we get to see Ripley's motherly nature, but also her badassery from the first one maintains. So it's kind of that perfect balance. I think Hicks is a great character, and Ripley obviously has, some chemistry with him. He's just a very good guy that always wants to do the right thing. And of course, we get a bunch of other fun side characters. In particular, Bill Paxton as Hudson is just one of the most entertaining and memorable characters on this entire list, and honestly in any movie ever. He's incredibly quotable. Game over, man. Game over. Look, he's in Predator 2, and it's kind of a similar, goofy character, but it doesn't work nearly as well in that one, and I can't exactly explain why. It works so well in this one because he is funny, but also properly reacting to the situation in a way that most normal people would. So it totally works in the movie. It doesn't feel forced at all or like they're setting up jokes or anything like that. It is more of an action movie for sure, and it's paced a little bit faster, which is another reason it's more up my alley than the first one. However, it still maintains the horror roots. It still maintains that tension and atmosphere that carries from start to finish, and we see a lot more aliens in this one. A minor issue with the first is that when we get close-ups of the alien and it's really moving, it looks pretty fake. In this one, it's practical effects. We see all these different aliens, and they look pretty real. So that also elevated it for me. And the score, which is, I believe, James Horner. I get the Jameses confused, sorry. James Horner does a great score as well that is kind of a mix of, again, like action and horror. It captures that vibe perfectly, especially Futile Escape. So there are so many good things. The Alien Queen is awesome, and they even do kind of the 180 with Bishop. You don't trust the android because of what happened in the first movie with Ash, which makes sense. Ripley doesn't trust him, the audience doesn't trust him, and then he ends up redeeming himself, or I guess redeeming, Ripley and the audience's view of androids by the end of the movie. So this movie does everything right. It's one of my favorites of all time. Love Aliens, and it is easily, despite the fact that I love Predator and the original Alien and Prey, and I really enjoy Predators and Alien Romulus, Aliens is easily the number one movie on this list for me. So there you have it, guys. There's my ranking of all 14 of the Alien and Predator movies and the Alien versus Predator movies. So my question is, how would you rank them? Drop in a comment below your ranking of the 14 movies. I would love to start a conversation about it. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. Likes are super important for helping me grow my channel and push my videos out to more people. If you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe, hit the notification bell to get notified when I post a video, and stay tuned. I got a lot more fun stuff planned. It's mostly going to be horror for the month of October, but I'm hoping to get a couple more things out in September before I start with that. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you soon.